today's starting pitching matchup, give you our keys to the game. Plus, we'll hear from manager Craig Stamen. From the Padres Radio Network, here's Sam Levitt.
San Diego Padres baseball coming up on 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. As today, the Padres take on the Colorado Rockies in the final game of a 3-game series. Our starting pitching matchup today for the Rockies, right-hander Ryan Feltner, and for the Padres, right-hander Matt Waldron. Hi again, everyone. Sam Levitt with you from inside our San Diego studios. First pitch coming up at Coors Field in Colorado at 12:10 p.m. Coming up in the next 50 minutes, we have a lot to do. You'll hear from Padres manager Craig Stamen. We'll hear from today's starting pitcher Matt Waldron. In just a few minutes, we check in with Jesse Agler in Denver, our keys to today's game, and much, much more. But first, it's time to set the table, brought to you by Fraser Farms Market. Set your table with the highest quality of natural and organic products from Fraser Farms Market, a San Diego original since 1971, with 3 locations: La Mesa, Vista, and Oceanside, and at FraserFarmsMarket.com. Padres enter today 16-8. They have won 14 of their past 17 games. They have a chance to make it 6 consecutive series wins today. Padres enter the day tied for first place in the National League West with the LA Dodgers. They are also 16-8. Rockies come in 10-15. They're searching for their first series win since sweeping the Astros more than 2 weeks ago. If the Rockies win today, they would actually close out a winning homestand against the Dodgers and Padres. They split a 4-game series against LA to begin the homestand. By the way, the Rockies already have 10 wins this season. It took them 60 games to win 10 last year. They got their 10th win on June 2nd. So already things going quite a bit better for Colorado here in 2026. Matt Waldron makes his second start of the season today. He had a bit of a rough season debut against the Angels in Anaheim on Friday. Waldron allowing 6 earned runs on 8 hits in just 3 2/3 innings. Well, yesterday in Denver, it was the middle game of this 3-game series. Let's rewind.
Did you miss what happened in the last Padres game? Let's take a look back with our Padres Rewind on the Padres Radio Network.
Right-hander Tomoyuki Sugano started the game for the Rockies. He issued a leadoff walk to Ramon Laureano. Later in the inning, Laureano was on second base for Jackson Merrill.
Padres trying to strike here in the first inning. Merrill swings at the first pitch, lines it into left center, and a base hit. McCarthy gets to it quickly. Laureano on his way home. The throw is cut, and an RBI single for Jackson Merrill gives the Padres a 1-0 lead in the first.
Padres still led 1-0 going to the second inning. Walker Buehler on the mound for the Pods last night. Rockies had a runner on second base with 2 outs for Willie Castro.
1-2, the pitch on the way. Castro swings, hits it hard on the ground through the right side and a base hit. Johnston rounding third on his way. Fernando's throw heading home. It's not going to be in time. And an RBI single for Willie Castro ties this game up 1-1 in the bottom of the second inning.
That was just the start of the trouble for Walker Buehler yesterday. He allowed 4 runs on 6 hits in the second inning as the Rockies took a 4-1 lead. Buehler would go just 2 2/3 innings. He had to throw more than 80 pitches to get there. Rockies struck again against Kyle Hart in the 4th inning, a leadoff double from Hunter Goodman. Later in the inning, TJ Rumfield delivered an RBI single to make it 5-1. Meanwhile, Sugano was really good for the Rockies. He would go 5 2/3 innings, allow just the 1 early run. Rockies got another run against David Morgan in the 6th inning to make it 6-1. Rockies reliever Jaden Hill was on the mound in the top of the 7th. Luis Campusano got the Padres a little bit closer.
The 0-1 pitch is hit in the air deep down the left field line. McCarthy going back. He's at the wall looking up. This one gonna go. Luis Campusano with his second of the year. A 1-run solo shot here in the 7th inning, and it's 6-2.
That's all the Padres scored in the 7th inning. Rockies got another run in the bottom half of the inning. Hunter Goodman homered in the 8th inning to make it 8-2. Padres scratched across a run in the 9th inning, but that was not enough, not nearly enough yesterday. Final score in the middle game of this series, Rockies 8 and the Padres 3. And it sets up the rubber match of this series coming up at 12:10 p.m. here in San Diego. As we get ready for first pitch, let's go to Denver at Coors Field.
let's take a trip up to the Padres broadcast booth for a deep dive on today's matchup with Jesse Agler in our Padres game preview on the Padres Radio Network.
Well, Jesse, let's start with a look at the Rockies. Rockies are trying to make it a winning homestand today against the Dodgers and Padres, which when you consider what they were last year is no small feat. I said it just a couple of minutes ago. Rockies have 10 wins already this season. Took them 60 games to get their 10th win last year. Jesse, do you agree with me? It seems like the Rockies, not that they're going to have a great year, but like they do have a little bit more hope, a little bit more direction right now than, say, they did a year ago.
Yeah, I think I don't know. Hope isn't necessarily the right word, but direction definitely is. They're pointed somewhere now as opposed to nowhere. And Tony and I talked a lot about this when they were at Petco a couple weeks ago. And even though the Padres swept them 4 straight, you could just see that there was now a rudder in place. Before they were kind of a boat or a life raft, almost just sort of drifting at sea, doing nothing. And I think the analogy I used felt like the last couple of years. The Rockies were just a guy standing near a wall, banging his head against it repeatedly, doing the same thing over and over again, just sort of methodically hitting his head against the wall. And it was like, well, what do you think is going to happen? Why do you keep doing this? And now finally, they're trying out some new things. And, it's Rumfield and Johnston in the middle of the order. And it's like, all right, good. Take a shot on a guy that you pull off waivers. Take a shot on a guy that had good AAA numbers for the Yankees last year. Do some different things. Try some different guys. And clearly they're doing that now, and they're getting some results. They're not going to lose 100 games this year, I don't think. And that's obviously, kind of a low bar to hurdle, but it's a good bar to hurdle if you're the Rockies because they've lost 100 games each of the last 3 years. So, look, there's no doubt they have taken a step forward. As you said, 10 wins at this point, very, very much better than 10 wins on June 2nd or whatever it was a year ago, and an opportunity, as you said, for a winning homestand against the Dodgers and the Padres, a couple of teams that knocked them around in a very big way last year. So there's no doubt they are heading in a better direction. They've got some more talent. Are the playoffs in the future for the Rockies this year? Probably not. Do they have a lot of things they still need to address? Absolutely. Is there sort of, an organizational rot that might need to be addressed, from the minor leagues all the way up? Perhaps, very much so. But they definitely seem to have the people in place who can address all of those things. And it's an organization on the rise at this point. And I don't think we've been able to say that at any point in the last however many years.
Jesse, let's talk a little bit about today's pitching matchup. Right-hander Matt Waldron making his second start of the season here today for the Padres. Had a very up-and-down season debut on Friday in Anaheim. I think it's interesting with Waldron right now because, well, it's just important that he pitches well in general, but also when you consider Griffin Canning getting close to returning, now you have Lucas Giolito probably a few weeks away from joining the Padres. Feels like the heat maybe turned up a little bit on a guy like Matt Waldron, having to pitch well to maybe keep his spot on this team.
I would say even if Griffin Canning and Lucas Giolito were not in the mix, that would be the case for Matt Waldron.
Yeah.
Even more so, of course, with those guys being a part of the conversation. But the reality was, for Matt Waldron, when he showed up the other day in Anaheim, if he was going to go up and throw a couple of clunkers out there, he was going to be back in El Paso because reality is, a team in the Padres position cannot afford to run a guy out there every 5 days who's not going to give you competitive starts. They would have tried somebody else. I don't know who it would have been, but they would have tried somebody else. And there's no doubt, that with those other, real deal big league arms in the mix, even more so pressure on Matt Waldron. But, this is a team that obviously has World Series aspirations. And so, that goes for Matt Waldron. That goes for Walker Buehler. That goes for German Marquez. That goes for everybody, kind of at the back end of this rotation. If you're not effective over a longer or even medium period of time, you're not going to get opportunities to continue to go out there. For some guys, that might mean a spell in the bullpen. For other guys, that might mean being used in a different role. And for some guys, that might mean, heading to the minor leagues or being off the roster altogether, based on where things are at that moment. This is a team that, again, has very deep October aspirations.
Yeah.
And so, if a guy continues to struggle in a real way, there are going to be those kinds of repercussions. They're going to, try and add as much depth as they can as the season goes along. And that's very much the reality for a lot of those guys. There's no doubt about it. And so, today, big for Matt Waldron. 5 days from now, big for Matt Waldron again, no doubt.
Right. Finally, just to touch on the Padres offense, it's been a quiet road trip offensively for this lineup. Does feel today a guy in Ryan Feltner on the mound for the Rockies. Jesse, somebody they've seen a lot, somebody they hit just a couple of weeks ago, feels like somebody that they should be able to do some damage against today, right?
It does. It really does. I haven't mentioned this to Tony yet. We'll talk about it during the game, I'm sure. I wonder if there's some residual effect when you're seeing all these really hard-throwing, tough guys that they've seen as of late, if that can kind of trickle down to some of the other games. And, I wonder if that was maybe the case yesterday a little bit against Sugano, who pitched well, don't get me wrong, but if sometimes, facing the really tough guys can have an after effect, some of the other games. I don't know. But you're right in that, we've definitely seen some tough pitchers as of late, but then it also seems like a couple of the guys you thought they would get to, they haven't. And on paper, they should be able to get to Feltner, and they did get to Feltner. A couple of big home runs against him on April 11th in San Diego. Laureano got him. Machado got him. They took Marquez off the hook in that game in San Diego. So very much hopeful that is the case here today. You would love to see the bats come alive in a big way today, kind of just get the weight off the shoulders, so to speak. Enjoy the day off in Mexico City tomorrow, and then just kind of, maybe continue to mash Saturday and Sunday against Arizona and head into the homestand against the Cubs and the White Sox, feeling good about the bats, because it has been a very quiet offensive road trip, despite the fact that, they're winning some games here.
Jesse, appreciate the time. We'll talk to you and Tony coming up at the very top of the hour. Thanks so much.
You got it, Sam.
All right, Jesse Agler joining us on our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show here on the Padres Radio Network as we get ready for today's game. Again, the rubber game of this 3-game set between the Padres and the Colorado Rockies. As always, if you want to get involved on our pregame coverage, you can do that in a variety of ways. You can find me on X at Sammy Lev, SAMMYLEV. Instagram DMs open as well. Sammy Lev there too. You can also comment on the 97.3 The Fan YouTube stream. Let me know who you are, where you're tuned in from, how you're getting ready to enjoy Padres baseball on this Thursday afternoon. And you can also give me a key to today's game. I may just read it live here on the air. When we come back, we hear from Padres manager Craig Stamen. We'll also take a look at the Padres lineup for the first time today and much, much more. First pitch coming up at 12:10 as the Padres go for a 6th consecutive series win as they take on the Rockies in Colorado. Our pregame coverage continues after this.
You're listening to the EcoWater SoCal.
For EcoWater SoCal, Padres pregame show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios. First pitch coming up at 12:10 p.m. in Denver as the Padres go for a series win in this rubber game of a 3-game set against the Colorado Rockies. As always, our pregame coverage brought to you by EcoWater SoCal, keeping it soft since 1925. Visit EcoWaterSoCal.com or call 760-350-3338. That's 760-350-3338. Let's hear from Padres manager Craig Stamen.
Let's pull up a seat in the manager's office and hear from Padres skipper Craig Stamen. Served up by Sinley Food. If you've had better chicken, you must be a rooster.
Day game after a night game, so no pregame media availability for Craig Stamen today. So let's revisit what Craig had to say after yesterday's loss in Colorado. Padres falling 8-3 in the middle game of this series. And the story of the road trip really has been the Padres offense just has not found ways to score a whole lot of runs. We'll talk more about this a little bit later, but Padres have had a lot of trouble lately at scoring against opposing starters. Walker Buehler had a tough start yesterday, gave up 4 runs in the second inning. Not a ton of hard contact in that second inning, but 4 runs on 6 hits nonetheless. Here was Craig Stamen on what Rockies starter Tomoyuki Sugano did well against the Padres last night.
He's just mixing his pitches well, and the splitter's a tough pitch, and then he's mixed in the slider and his fastball had good velocity tonight. We were taking good at bats, but we couldn't finish him, and he finished us off really well tonight.
A lot of ground ball outs.
Yep, a lot of ground ball outs. That's probably his MO is keep the ball down and get the ball on the ground, especially in this ballpark, and he did his job tonight.
You guys have been taking good at bats, and you thought tonight's were good.
They were okay. I mean, in the end, you can stay stubborn, but you gotta finish them off. And we haven't been able to finish off at bats here lately. Today, especially, we felt like we were getting into good counts. We were laying off the splitter down a little bit, but just weren't able to finish those at bats with pitches that, we thought we could do some damage on.
It's not like you're guaranteed to come here and score a bunch of runs, but you don't expect to not score.
Right. I think all the hitters look forward to coming here and hitting and, hopefully, get themselves right and get back on the hot streak. So far we haven't got that, but we got one more game here and see how it goes.
Did you see some pitches up, but also some bad fortune for Walker in the second?
Yeah, definitely some bad fortune. He's out of it if that ball doesn't hit the base. And then, they're running, we're covering, hit the hole, those kind of things. And, ground ball to bogey that he kind of gloves, maybe makes an amazing play, gets a guy out at second, would have saved another run. So, the runs and the 4-run inning, it wasn't that bad of an inning. It was just kind of a course field inning.
It's 4 runs in 2 days here, and I think 6 runs in the last 3 games. Is there a little funk going on, or just up again?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the season.
Yeah.
You're not going to score 10 runs every game, and you just got to manage those ups and downs. And right now, I don't think our guys are seeing the ball really well, and we'll get them right, and eventually they'll start clicking.
Help to break the homerless drought? Did that? It's been 5 games without a homer.
Yeah, I don't think we're counting it here how many days it is without a home run. We don't have it on the big board out there, but it is nice to see Campusano have a great game tonight. 2 doubles and a homer. He's been swinging well, continues to swing it well throughout the year, and just 3 great swings from him today.
Freddie with the double last night. I think your catchers are doing something almost every game, and you're familiar with what the catching situation offensively was last year.
Yeah.
Eventually, maybe not right in these few games, but eventually, how much of a difference might that make for you guys?
Yeah, I think it's already made a difference this year. Just those guys taking quality at bats and being someone that the pitcher, really has to game plan for and has to be careful with. And we're seeing Freddie take good at bats last night. Campy take good at bats tonight. Campy's had a couple big hits that have been almost game-saving hits, and we know Freddie takes quality at bats, every night too. So, just those guys at the bottom lineup are lengthening our lineup, and then when we get Crony going, it's going to be really good.
That was Padres manager Craig Stamen last night inside the Padres clubhouse following the 8-3 loss to the Rockies. We'll hear more from Craig on our postgame coverage coming up later on this afternoon as we get ready for first pitch coming up at 12:10, the rubber game of this 3-game series between the Padres and Rockies. Let's take a look at today's Padres lineup. Leading off for the Padres, left fielder Ramon Laureano. He's followed by Fernando Tatis Jr. in right field today. Jackson Merrill playing center field, batting third. Manny Machado at third base, batting cleanup. Xander Bogaerts at shortstop, batting fifth. Miguel Andujar, the DH, batting sixth. Ty France getting the start at first base today, batting seventh. Freddie Fermin behind the plate, batting eighth. And Jake Cronenworth at second base, batting ninth, with, again, right-hander Matt Waldron on the mound for San Diego. Right-hander Ryan Feltner, who the Padres beat up pretty good back at Petco Park a couple of starts ago. He's on the mound today for the Rockies. Let's tell you who's hot, who's not.
Which player is locked in at the dish? Who needs to step up their game? This is Who's Hot, Who's Not. Presented by ASAP Drain Guys and Plumbing, a division of Anderson Commercial, your full-service plumber serving San Diego County.
We take a look at the hot category. A couple of guys we'll put in there today. Xander Bogaerts batting .364 with a .990 OPS in his past 15 games. He's in the hot category. The other guy in there, Luis Campusano, not in the lineup today. Day game after a night game. He's the catcher. Makes a lot of sense. Freddie Fermin would make the start today. Campusano, since the beginning of April, he's batting .387 in 31 at-bats, 2 home runs, 6 doubles, and 7 RBIs in that span. We'll see if we see Campy off the bench at all today. The not category, unfortunately, a lot of guys in there and a lot of key guys in that category for the Padres. Jackson Merrill, he's 1 for 19 with 10 strikeouts in 5 games on this road trip so far. Ramon Laureano, he's 0 for 12 in his last 3 games, just 2 for 20 in his last 5 games. Manny Machado, just 2 for 20 in the last 5 games. And Nick Castellanos has only 1 hit in his past 25 at-bats. And that's a look at who's hot, who's not, as we get ready for first pitch coming up at 12:10. Now let's take you around the horn.
Let's examine the most important news and the latest information you need to know in the world of Major League Baseball. Sam Levitt takes you around the horn. Presented by Valley View Casino and Hotel. Get ready for Major League winning when you join Valley View Casino and Hotel's Players Club and receive over $200 in free instant offers. Visit valleyviewcasino.com to learn more today.
First day, couple of highlights from last night. The Giants and Dodgers were scoreless in San Francisco in the 7th inning until this.
The pitch. Bailey, high drive, left field. It is gone! Patrick Bailey pummels one into the night and puts the Giants ahead 3-0.
Patrick Bailey hitting a 3-run home run for the Giants last night against the Dodgers. Giants doing the Padres a favor, beating the Dodgers 3-0 yesterday, courtesy of that Patrick Bailey home run. Let's go to the East Coast. Last night in New York, the Mets finally did it.
Here's the pitch. Swung on and missed, strike 3. Put it in the books. For the first time in 15 days, the New York Mets have won a baseball game.
The Mets beat the Twins 3-2, snapping a 12-game losing streak. Luke Weaver closing the door in the 9th inning. Wasn't all good for the Mets in that game. Francisco Lindor left the game with a tight calf the same day. Juan Soto returned to the lineup from dealing with a calf injury of his own. Finally, White Sox rookie Munetaka Murakami made a little history last night in Arizona.
And he swings, hits a high drive out into center field, and he's hit another one. Murakami with his 5th homer in 5 games on this road trip.
Murakami tied a Major League Baseball rookie record by homering in his 5th consecutive game, a 451-foot shot to right center, his 10th home run of the season. White Sox lost that game 11-7 in Arizona. Murakami will have a chance to set the rookie record for consecutive games with a home run later today in Phoenix. And by the way, the calls there, the Giants call via KNBR in San Francisco, the Mets call via Mets radio. Howie Rose on the the call there, and Len Casper on the call, White Sox radio on the Murakami home run. Some other headlines for you. The Phillies lost again yesterday in Chicago against the Cubs. The Phillies have lost 8 games in a row, their longest losing streak since 2018. By the way, the Phillies making a move earlier today, right before we came on the air. They released Taijuan Walker in the final year of his 4-year, $72 million deal. He had a 9.13 ERA in 5 games this year. So Taijuan Walker has been released by the Phillies. And finally, just a little note here. I was looking up some things last night, and this stood out to me. Entering today, 9 of the 10 best records in the major leagues currently belong to teams in the National League. You may have heard rumblings early part of this season. National League seems as a whole a lot stronger than the AL. Yeah, it's true. If you look at the best records in baseball, the only American League team in the top 10 best records in the game right now, the Yankees, who are 15-9, the Braves, Padres, Dodgers, Reds, Cubs, Diamondbacks, Cardinals, Pirates, and Brewers make up the rest of that top 10. Now, it's very, very early in the season, but what can you take away from that? Well, you could look at it and say, you know what? National League, when it comes to the wild card race, it might be really tough this year. You've got a lot of teams that are off to pretty good starts. Of course, it is April 23rd. We got a long, long way to go. When we come back, we give you the latest on Griffin Canning and his rehab assignment. Plus, we hear from today's starting pitcher, Matt Waldron, a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard, our keys to today's game, and much, much more. First pitch coming up at 12:10 in Denver as we get ready for the final game of this 3-game series against the Rockies on the Padres Radio Network. Our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show continues here on the Padres Radio Network as we get ready for a little Thursday afternoon baseball. Padres going for a series win, rubber match of this 3-game set coming up against the Colorado Rockies. Matt Waldron on the mound for the Padres today. We'll hear from Matt in just a moment, so stay tuned for that. Also, a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard and our keys to today's game, all coming up in this segment. But first, let's give you the latest on Griffin Canning's rehab assignment.
Who's in? Who's out? This is the Bada Fulkerson Injury Report, presented by San Diego's Bulldog Injury Attorneys, who hope you're never in an accident. But if you are, make Bada Fulkerson the first call you make. Hit him up 24/7 at badafulkerson.com.
Well, Griffin Canning continues to work his way back to the Padres rotation after signing with the Padres in the offseason. He tore his Achilles last year with the Mets. He had been really good with the Mets before having that season-ending injury. He made his 4th rehab start yesterday for AAA El Paso. Only threw 45 pitches in the game. That was because he got taken out in the 2nd inning. From what I understand, nothing wrong or anything like that, but he just threw a lot of pitches in that 2nd inning. Would go an inning and 2/3, 2 earned runs given up, 3 hits. He walked a couple of guys. Sometimes in a situation like that, they may go to the bullpen, finish throwing their pitches. But Griffin Canning did have a shorter outing in the game yesterday, made his 4th rehab start for AAA El Paso. But we'll see what the next step is for Griffin Canning. You would imagine he's getting pretty close to joining this Padres rotation. We'll see what the timeline continues to be. And that is a quick look, the update on Griffin Canning, who again made his 4th rehab start yesterday for AAA El Paso. Matt Waldron on the mound for the Padres here today. Waldron had a rough start, his first of the year in the major leagues on Friday in Anaheim, when 3 2/3 innings, 6 earned runs given up, 8 hits. He allowed 1 home run. Here was Matt Waldron on what he learned from his first start of the season in the big leagues.
That would be just to stick with my strengths and not try and do too much. I felt like I prepared as good as I could and felt as good as I could and, was as confident as I could be. So that's all great, but it's all about results. Just sticking with my game, and that's moving the fastball around and always keeping the pressure on them.
Waldron, as we know, he is a part-time knuckleballer, I would call him. He's not a traditional knuckleballer in this sense. At least right now, he is throwing his knuckleball more like he threw it at the very early part of his career when he came up to the major leagues. He threw the knuckleball 38% of the time in that first start. He actually threw a sweeper a lot as well at 25%. Remember, Waldron threw the knuckleball more last season and late in 2024. To give you an example, his only major league start last year, he was throwing it at that time 74% of his outing. So he was throwing it a lot last year. That was similar to what we saw late in 2024, but we knew coming out of spring training, based on what Matt was doing in spring training and the way he was talking about the knuckleball, that he was thinking about reverting back to using it less. And that was on display on Friday through that knuckleball 38% of the time. And look, the knuckleball usage for Matt is always something we keep an eye on, because throughout the course of his career, it has changed from time to time how he's utilizing that pitch. Here was Matt Waldron on his current pitch mix and using the knuckleball a little bit less than what he did last year.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I think that's, I think it helps with knuckleball, at least the consistency of it. I think I could do a job of kind of throwing a slower one. I feel like they're all in the same ballpark of speed. So I feel like, the next step would just be kind of changing this pace of that a little bit, but ultimately relying on my command and putting the ball where I want and stick with that and have that amplify the knuckleball and kind of complement each other.
Well, for any pitcher, pitching at Coors Field can be a challenge and certainly comes with some adjustments you probably have to make. Here was Matt Waldron on what adjustments he needs to make pitching at Coors Field today.
Yeah, I think a big one is it's just not getting too frustrated with not seeing the movements. Find your lanes with the 2-seam, so where to start it. Same with the 4-seam, and I think there's a little bit more reliability on a cutter here. I think cutter for me helps with the movement here, but ultimately staying within yourself and not trying to change too much, and cardio as well, working efficiently.
Yeah, you got that thin air. You got to have the cardio all set up. Hey, I need more cardio, and I'm at sea level here. Maybe I'll go for a run a little bit later today. Matt Waldron. That was Matt inside the Padres clubhouse. Matt Waldron making the start here today in the rubber game of this 3-game series. We'll get back to today's game in just a moment, but first, let's take a look at the out-of-town scoreboard.
Let's take a trip around the bigs to highlight the scores that matter most with our out-of-town scoreboard. Presented by Jensen Premium Beef Patties. Always a hit for grilling.
We have a few games going on right now. Braves and the Nationals are tied at 2 in D.C. in the 7th inning. Tigers lead the Brewers 3-1 in Detroit in the 6th inning. Phillies and the Cubs are tied at 1 at Wrigley in the 2nd. Phillies trying to snap an 8-game losing skid. Everything else coming up later. White Sox and the Diamondbacks in Arizona at 12:40. Dodgers and the Giants at 12:45 in San Francisco. Good pitching matchup there. Tyler Glasnow on the mound for L.A. Logan Webb on the mound for San Francisco. Yankees and the Red Sox at Fenway at 3:10. Yankees going for a sweep in that 3-game series. The Twins and the Mets at 4:10 in New York, and the Pirates and Rangers in Arlington at 5:05. Good pitching matchup there. Jacob deGrom on the mound for Texas. Bubba Chandler, good young right-hander who the Padres saw earlier this season on the mound for the Pirates. And that is a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard. We'll have much more on all those games coming up a little bit later. First pitch coming up in just a little bit in Colorado. Let's give you our keys to today's game.
How will the Padres unlock a win today? These are the keys to the game on the Padres Radio Network.
Key number 1. Don't leave Denver without some offense. The Padres offense has simply not been very productive during this series, considering what offensive numbers typically look like in Colorado. Padres have just 4 runs on 13 hits in this series so far. On this road trip, the Padres have 10 runs total through 5 games. They're averaging just 6 hits per game on the trip. And oh, by the way, the only home run on this trip came from Luis Campusano last night. The Padres were dangerously close last night to going 6 games without a home run for the first time in a decade and a half. This 5-game stretch comes after a stretch of 12 games where the Padres offense was really good. They were averaging in that 12-game span nearly 6 runs per game, more than 9 hits per game, more than a home run per game. And guess what? They went 11-1 during that 12-game stretch. I bring all that up to say Padres offense has to get it going. There's not a whole lot of excuse here, especially in Colorado and then at even higher elevation in Mexico City. That's key number 1. Rev up the offense today. Key number 2, good glove work. The Padres have not committed an error in 13 consecutive games, their longest streak since going 16 games at the start of the 2022 season without committing an error. Good defense, that's always a good thing. That's key number 2. Key number 3, don't let Mickey mash. Talking about Mickey Moniak, who grew up here in San Diego. He has been very, very good as of late, batting .324 with 8 extra base hits and 8 RBIs in his last 10 games, including a couple of doubles in yesterday's game. And Moniak back in the lineup for the Rockies today, playing left field and batting second. And that's a look at our keys to today's game. When we come back, we'll take an even deeper dive into something with the Padres offense that they have to do a better job of. Plus, we'll take a look at today's starting pitching matchup between Matt Waldron and Ryan Feltner. Much more to do as we walk you up towards first pitch coming up at 12:10 in Colorado. Padres going for a series win against the Rockies. We continue after this.
We'll be right back.
Padres baseball coming up here on 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. First pitch in under 20 minutes in Colorado. We send things out to Jesse and Tony in just about 8 minutes. So baseball on the way on this Thursday afternoon. We have somebody on the YouTube stream on the 97.3 The Fan YouTube channel. The handle here is _beef. It's an interesting name. The Beef is writing us saying, love midday games, makes the last couple of hours of work so much better. Well, we're glad we could make the workday a little bit easier for you as we bring you Padres baseball here on the Padres Radio Network. Before we get to what to watch for today, break down today's starting pitching matchup between Matt Waldron and Ryan Feltner. I do want to just bring this up because I was thinking about it and I was saying to myself, I feel like for a team that is 16-8, maybe I've been sounding a little negative when I've talked about the offense this morning, whether it was on Ben and Woods or on the Epic Roundtable I was on this morning, or even here on the pregame going through our keys to the game and talking about the offense. Padres certainly are off to a terrific start at 16-8. They've won 14 of their last 17 games. However, as I always say on the postgame show, two things can be true at once. You can be winning games, and also your offense could need to kick it into a bit of a higher gear. Let's talk more about that as we tell you what to watch for in this series finale.
What's the one thing Sam Levitt will be keeping his eye on in today's game? This is What to Watch For, presented by Genesis Home Improvements, San Diego's trusted painting, roofing, and window company. Save 15% today on a new beginning for your home. Visit GenesisHomeImprovements.com.
What to watch for here today. Can the Padres get to an opposing starter? I'm going to list off what opposing starting pitchers have done to the Padres going back to last Tuesday against the Mariners. This is a while ago. Brian Wu, 7 innings, 3 runs given up. Emerson Hancock went 6 innings, 2 runs. Luis Castillo, 5 innings and a third, 1 earned run given up. Jose Soriano, 5 2/3 scoreless innings. Yusei Kikuchi, 6 scoreless. Walbert Urania of the Angels, 6 innings of 2-run ball. Chase Dolander didn't start the game the other night, but he was the bulk innings guy after the opener, and he basically was a starter. 6 innings, 1 run given up for Dolander. And then last night, Tomoyuki Sugano, 5 2/3 innings, 1 earned run given up. I go through that whole list, 8 games, to point out that's a 1.89 ERA for those pitchers in that span. So what does that tell you? Again, despite the Padres winning a lot of those games, Padres have not done a great job at getting to opposing starting pitchers. And this should hypothetically be a right-hander today on the mound for the Rockies, and Ryan Feltner, that they should be able to hit at least a little bit. Not that you're going to tattoo them, but you would imagine the Padres should be able to get some offense today against Ryan Feltner. So what to watch for today? Can the Padres get to an opposing team starting pitcher? Because as of late, that has not been the case for this Padres offense. Speaking of starting pitching, let's take a deeper look at Matt Waldron against Ryan Feltner.
Let's break down how today's starters are shaping up with our starting pitching preview on the Padres Radio Network.
On the mound for the Padres, the right-hander Matt Waldron, 29 years old, made his season debut against the Angels on Friday. 3 2/3 innings, 6 earned runs given up on 8 hits. He allowed 1 home run. Waldron threw the knuckleball 38% of the time in that outing. His sweeper at 25%. Remember, and we talked about this earlier, Waldron threw the knuckleball a lot more last season and late in 2024. His only major league start last year, he threw it 74% of the time. This will be Waldron's 3rd career start in Colorado. The other 2 came in 2024. One was great, the other not so great. April 2024, 6 innings, 1 run given up. August 2024, 5 2/3 innings, 7 earned runs allowed on 9 hits in Colorado. So what kind of outing do we get from Waldron in Denver today? We're going to find out. Ryan Feltner, right-hander, 29 years old, on the mound for Colorado. 1-1, a 6 ERA in 4 starts so far this season. Faced the Padres 2 starts ago, allowed 6 earned runs on 7 hits in just 4 innings. Gave up home runs to Manny Machado and Ramon Laureano in that game. Both those guys back in the lineup today. He's made 6 career starts against the Padres. The Padres have hit .306 against them with a team OPS of .822. So Padres do have overall good numbers against Feltner. They hit him very hard his first start of the year earlier this month against him. We'll see if the Padres can get to Feltner here today. And that's a look at our starting pitching matchup between Matt Waldron and Ryan Feltner. As always, thank you for listening to the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show on 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. Padres entered today 16-8. They have won 14 of their past 17 games, and today the Padres have a chance to make it 6 consecutive series wins in the rubber game of this 3-game series. When we return, we send it out to Denver at Coors Field. Jesse Agler, Tony Gwynn Jr. have the full starting lineups, first pitch, and all the play-by-play. I'll talk to you on our post-game coverage. You're listening to your home for San Diego Padres baseball, 97.3 The Fan and the Padres Radio Network. Enjoy the game, everybody.